Welcome in. Today we're essentially stripping away your job title, your
Hmm.
social status, your daily routines, and even your physical body.
Basically stripping away everything.
Right. Literally everything. We are stripping it all away to ask one single, profound question. What is the true essence of who you are?
It is the ultimate question,
It
really.
is. It is. So we're taking a deep dive today into a really compelling framework. We've got excerpts from a text called Soulology, specifically the architecture of the inner self. And our mission today is to navigate the deepest dimensions of human identity, uncovering what remains when you strip away all those temporary labels we wear every single day.
The masks we wear, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Who is the you underneath all of that?
And that is, it's the ultimate philosophical inquiry. But to set the foundation right at the outset, I think it's crucial to understand what this framework actually means by its title.
Right, because the word soul has a lot of baggage.
A ton of baggage. So, soulology is the study of the living soul. But what's fascinating here is that the text explicitly divorces that term from strict religious dogma.
Which is huge.
It really is. You don't need to subscribe to a specific theology to engage with this at all. Instead, it defines the soul simply as the deepest center of a living being. We are exploring the inner architecture of consciousness itself.
Which is such an important distinction. We aren't talking about, something mystical floating up in the clouds.
No, not at all.
We are talking about the undeniable experiential reality that there is a center to your existence, a core.
Precisely. And if we look at the historical context for a second, we see that while the language shifts across eras, across borders, this core human intuition is remarkably consistent.
It pops up everywhere.
Everywhere. For instance, in ancient Greece, philosophers referred to this animating deeper center as the psyche.
And back then, that wasn't just a clinical term for the mind, right?
Yeah.
Like how we use it today.
Exactly. It wasn't clinical. It meant the breath, the essence of the person. And then, if you look at India, within their rich Vedic traditions, you find the concept of the Atman.
That, and yeah.
Right, which is the inner universal self that exists beneath the transient ego, beneath the everyday identity.
And even beyond those specific classical examples, we see this exact same underlying intuition across virtually every other human tradition.
Yeah, we really do.
Sometimes it's called the spirit. Sometimes it's framed as pure consciousness, or a life force, or simply the inner self.
The vocabulary changes, but the meaning doesn't.
Exactly. The recognition that there is a profound experiencing identity deeper than our external circumstances that remains completely universal. Soulology essentially acts as a dedicated modern study of that exact dimension.
It's giving us a framework for the oldest human intuition.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to really grasp the architecture Soulology is proposing, we have to grapple with the core questions it asks.
The foundational stuff.
Right. And these are questions I want you, listening right now, to actively apply to your own life. Just think about these as we go. The first one is foundational. What gives a person a sense of meaning or purpose?
And that is rarely a static answer, What gives you meaning at 20 is often entirely different from what gives you meaning at 50.
Oh, absolutely.
Yet the architectural need for that meaning, that is a permanent fixture of your inner life.
Right. Then we move to the second question. Why do people feel drawn toward certain paths in life?
That gravitational pull.
Yes, think about that undeniable gravitational pull. Why does one person feel an intense, almost irrational compulsion to create art, while another is drawn to heal the sick or to understand complex mathematics?
It's not always a logical career choice.
No, not at all. It's a deeper alignment.
Which leads directly into the third question. And this one really challenges how we view our own continuity.
This is my favorite one.
Yeah, it asks what part of us remains consistent even as our personality, our roles, and our circumstances change.
I love this one because it plays with the classic ship of Theseus paradox.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah.
You aren't the exact same person you were at 10 years old.
Biologically or mentally?
Right. Your cells have regenerated, your opinions have drastically shifted, you've changed jobs, relationships, maybe even the country you live in.
Your personality might have completely mellowed out.
Or sharpened, but you still fundamentally feel like you. What is the actual substance of that consistent thread?
Exactly. And the final core question explores the feedback loop of existence. How do experiences shape the inner life of a person?
How the outside changes the inside.
Right. How does the external world interact with that internal consistency? Now, this raises an important point about how we fundamentally view humanity. Why does asking these specific questions matter so much right now?
Why are we doing this deep dive?
Exactly. Soulology draws a sharp contrast here. It presents a massive paradigm shift away from how modern society operates. It essentially contrasts two entirely different views of humanity.
Okay, lay them out for us.
Well, on one hand, you have the highly prevalent view that treats human beings merely as biological machines, or strictly as social roles.
Let me play devil's advocate here for a second, though. Modern neuroscience and biology heavily argue that we are essentially incredibly complex biological algorithms.
Sure, the meat machine argument.
Right, that our thoughts, our reactions, our very sense of self, it's all just neurons firing, neurotransmitters binding to receptors, evolutionary biology doing its thing. How does soulology reconcile this deeper inner architecture with the hard biological facts?
It's a crucial challenge. But Soulology doesn't necessarily reject the biological reality of the brain. Rather, it rejects the reductionist view,
Meaning what? Exactly.
meaning it rejects the idea that biology is the entirety of the human story. It's addressing the experiential layer, what philosophers call the hard problem of consciousness.
Ah,
Yes, neurons are firing, but who is experiencing the firing? Furthermore, society often reduces people even further than biology by treating them merely as their social functions. The worker, the consumer, the taxpayer, the parent, just cogs in a larger socioeconomic machine.
it's very dehumanizing when you put it like that.
It is. And Soulology pushes back against both of those reductions.
Mm-hmm.
It views human beings as infinitely complex inner worlds. It argues that reducing a human to mere biology or societal function strips away the very thing that makes life recognizable.
So if we aren't just biological machines or societal cogs,
Yeah.
how does this framework actually define the soul? Like if I can't look at an fMRI scan and point to the soul, where does it fit into this architecture?
Well, in this framework, the soul is not a supernatural object hidden in the physical body.
You aren't going to find it tucked behind the prefrontal cortex.
Exactly. Rather, it is defined functionally. It is the living center of awareness and meaning within a person.
Center of awareness.
Yes, it is the exact convergence point where your identity, your subjective experience of the world, and your sense of purpose all intersect.
The convergence point.
Mm.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. It implies an active, dynamic intersection rather than just a static object sitting there.
Exactly.
If we look at the architecture of a person, our thoughts, our transient emotions, our memories, they are all just expressions of this deeper center.
Even our creativity.
Even our creativity and our moral awareness, that quiet intuition that flares up when something feels fundamentally right or deeply wrong, independent of what society tells you.
Right.
All of those are just the outward expressions of that inner convergence point.
Precisely. And because it is a dynamic convergence point, that inner architecture is never truly finished. It is in a constant state of becoming. Which brings us to a major pillar of soulology,
How we grow.
how people actually develop and express their inner nature over time.
This is where we get into the trajectory of discovery. The framework outlines a very recognizable developmental path. Think about your own life. We generally all start our lives operating under the heavy weight of external expectations.
The blueprint is handed to us.
Exactly. The blueprint for your early life is handed to you by your family, your culture, your society. You adopt the beliefs of your parents, you strive for the markers of success defined by your peers, and you play the roles assigned to you.
And we should say it's an essential survival mechanism in early life. We have to learn how to navigate the external world first.
We need that scaffolding.
Right. But then an inevitable friction occurs. The framework highlights a critical turning point. Over time, those external expectations and assigned roles lose their structural integrity.
They stop working.
They stop being enough to sustain a person's sense of meaning. People begin to feel a pressing, sometimes painful need to understand themselves more deeply.
They hit a wall.
Yes.
Yeah.
They start asking, who am I really beneath all these roles? What actually matters to me? This period of rigorous self-inquiry and the subsequent realignment of one's life is what Soulology calls soul development.
And it's important to clarify that soul development isn't some passive, blissful state of enlightenment where you just sit under a tree.
Not at all. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the mechanism of this growth is inherently rigorous. Soulology essentially treats life itself as a classroom.
Which fundamentally reframes how we process hardship.
Mm-hmm.
We are so often taught to view difficulty as a malfunction of our lives, a glitch.
Right, like something went wrong.
But in this framework, your experiences, both the profoundly joyful ones and the devastatingly difficult ones, are all active opportunities to understand your inner nature. The challenges you face, the monumental mistakes you make, the periods of deep confusion and lostness.
They aren't signs that you have failed.
Exactly. They aren't failures. They are literally the curriculum.
It's a radical acceptance of the human experience. Growth, in this context, involves actively recognizing the patterns within your own life. It requires learning from the friction of those experiences and then doing the hard work of aligning your actions with your deeper internal values rather than external pressures.
It touches everything.
It encompasses everything. Your relationships, your creative pursuits, your daily work, your moments of quiet reflection. They all contribute to this ongoing education. Life isn't happening to you, it's interacting with that inner convergence point to forge deeper awareness.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. We've been focusing heavily on the individual, your convergence point, your curriculum, your unique inner architecture.
The micro view.
Right. But Soulology introduces a profound paradox regarding the relationship between the individual and the collective. Think about your own life right now. You experience the world from a vantage point that is entirely, completely unique to you.
Singular.
Nobody else has your exact combination of memories, traumas, joys, and sensory inputs.
Yeah.
You are navigating life in a state of absolute singular uniqueness.
And honestly, it can feel incredibly isolating when viewed only from that perspective.
It really can.
But Soulology resolves this paradox beautifully. It explains that individuality and profound connection are not opposing forces. They are two sides of the same coin.
How does it bridge that gap?
Well, while your specific trajectory is entirely unique, the underlying emotional and psychological patterns you experience are universally shared. The text provides a very specific, critical list of these shared experiences.
Get rid of them.
Love, fear, curiosity, compassion, grief, and creativity.
That list: love, fear, curiosity, compassion, grief, creativity. Those are really the primary colors of the human experience.
Precisely. Let's look at grief, for example. The circumstances of your grief are yours alone. The specific relationship you lost, the precise void it left in your daily routine. No one else can fully inhabit that exact space.
Right.
Yet the essence of grief, the psychological landscape it creates within the soul, is universally recognizable. A person navigating a loss today is experiencing the exact same core frequency of grief as someone mourning thousands of years ago in antiquity.
That's a powerful way to look at it.
Or take curiosity. The specific spark of curiosity that drives a quantum physicist today is the exact same energetic frequency of curiosity that drove early humans to navigate across oceans.
So the deeper you go into your own incredibly specific, unique inner world, the more you actually tap into the universal human condition.
Exactly. The profound takeaway here is that a person discovers their own distinct nature while simultaneously recognizing their absolute participation in a larger, unbroken human story.
We're all in the same classroom.
We are. These shared inner experiences are the invisible connective tissue spanning across all cultures and all generations. You are entirely unique, and yet you are never truly alone in your experience.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, on a practical level? Exploring this architecture conceptually is fascinating, but how do we actually do Soulology?
How do we apply it?
Right. How do we engage with this classroom deliberately? The framework doesn't just leave us in the realm of high philosophy. It pivots to the practical. It outlines 6 specific practices designed to help people become acutely aware of their inner life.
And these practices are essentially tools for excavating that convergence point.
Let's go through them.
The first practice highlighted is reflection and journaling. And this isn't just about recording what you ate for lunch.
Right, not a captain's log.
No, it's the deliberate act of externalizing your internal landscape. By putting thoughts onto paper, you force abstract anxieties and transient emotions into a concrete form where you can actually examine them. It's architectural drafting for the inner self.
I love that. The second practice is meditation, or quiet contemplation. In a modern world that is constantly demanding your attention and reinforcing your external roles, creating space for absolute stillness is almost an act of rebellion.
Yours.
It allows the noise of societal expectations to settle so you can actually perceive that deeper center.
And that leads to the third practice, which is creative expression, which naturally extends from what we established earlier. If creativity is an outward expression of the soul, then engaging in creative acts, whether that's painting, writing code, gardening, or building a business, is a way of exercising that inner architecture. It's making the invisible visible.
And the fourth practice is meaningful conversation. And we really have to distinguish this from daily transactional communication.
Oh, absolutely.
Meaningful conversation isn't networking or small talk. It's the intentional sharing of those universal primary colors we talk about. The fear, the curiosity, the grief. It's allowing your inner world to be witnessed by someone else and holding space to witness theirs.
The fifth practice is time in nature. This one is particularly powerful because it bypasses the human ego entirely.
How so?
Well, when you step into a dense forest or stand before the ocean, you are stepping out of the artificial human-constructed environments that constantly reinforce your social roles. Nature operates on a scale that humbles the ego and naturally pulls you back toward a more fundamental sense of simply being.
It puts you in your place in a good way.
Exactly. And finally, the sixth practice is the study of philosophy, psychology, or spiritual traditions.
Basically surrounding yourself with the insights of the people who have been wrestling with these exact same questions for millennia. It provides vocabulary for the things you are feeling but haven't been able to articulate.
Now, there is a crucial caveat here that must be addressed. It is very easy to misuse these practices.
In what way?
The text is clear. The ultimate goal of journaling, meditating, or retreating into nature is not to escape the world. Soulology explicitly rejects the idea of withdrawing from your responsibilities or using spirituality to bypass the friction of daily life.
Right. The goal isn't to run away to a mountaintop and ignore the complexities of modern existence.
Exactly. The purpose of these practices is to understand your place within the world more clearly. You cultivate the inner architecture so that you can exist in the external world with greater effectiveness, authenticity, and grounding.
And when you actually commit to that, when you stop running from the curriculum and start using these practices, the transformation is profound. The framework details specific outcomes that occur when someone becomes genuinely aligned with their inner life.
The real-world results.
Yes. First, they develop significantly greater emotional resilience. If your entire identity is built on your job and you lose your job, you are destroyed.
Because the foundation is gone.
Exactly. But if your identity is anchored to that deeper convergence point, the changing circumstances of the external world can't shatter you. The structure holds.
The second outcome is a naturally deeper empathy for others. This is the logical result of recognizing that shared human story. When you have done the difficult work of exploring your own inner complexity, your own fears, your own griefs, your own capacity for mistakes, you automatically project that complexity onto others.
You give them grace.
Yes, you stop reducing the people around you to mere social roles or obstacles, and you begin to recognize their inner architecture. You realize everyone else is navigating their own rigorous curriculum.
The third outcome is a much clearer sense of direction. When you strip away the expectations of your parents or society and finally understand what genuinely gives you meaning, navigating the classroom of life becomes significantly less bewildering. Your compass is finally calibrated to true north rather than magnetic north,
Beautifully said.
and that leads to the final outcome. Your decisions begin to align closely with your personal values rather than external pressure. You stop acting out of obligation or a desire for societal validation, and you start making choices that ring true to your deepest center.
If we synthesize everything we've explored today, the brilliance of Soulology becomes clear. It operates simultaneously as a philosophical framework and a deeply practical discipline.
It bridges the gap perfectly.
It operates on the fundamental recognition that human beings are, at our core, meaning-making beings. We are not passive biological algorithms merely reacting to stimuli. We possess the profound capacity to actively interpret our experiences, to derive meaning from friction, and to shape the trajectory of our lives through conscious awareness and deliberate choice.
The driver's seat.
Exactly. In this light, the study of the soul is not some esoteric hobby. It is the ultimate study of what it means to be fully, robustly human.
It really is. But as we wrap up, I want to reiterate that Soulology doesn't offer a single, final, definitive answer.
No framework ever does.
Right. It's not going to hand you an equation that perfectly solves the mystery of your identity. Instead, it is a permanent invitation. It is a framework that encourages unending curiosity about your own existence. It invites you to look inward, to trust your own experiences, and to cultivate a relationship with your inner dimension.
That's the real work.
The ultimate goal is simply to help you understand yourself and the world with greater clarity and compassion. Because at its foundation, all of this is just an ongoing exploration of one singular question. What is the deepest truth of who we are?
And to that point, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over long after this deep dive ends. We spent a lot of time today discussing the search for that consistent inner self, that core convergence point that remains even as your physical body and social roles change.
The consistent thread.
Right. But think about this. If life is truly a classroom and your soul is the student processing this rigorous curriculum, does that deep inner essence stay fundamentally unchanged as a passive observer of your life? Or does the you at the very center fundamentally transform with every single profound lesson you learn? Is your core a fixed, unmovable anchor? Or is it a shapeshifter, constantly evolving into something entirely new?
Is your core a fixed anchor, or is it a shapeshifter?
Hmm.
What an incredible question to leave hanging in the air. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. It has been a privilege to unpack this architecture with you. As you go back out into the noise of your day, back to the temporary roles you have to play and the biological machine you have to operate, we encourage you to take just one quiet moment today to look inward. Check in with that deepest truth. Until next time.